So on a Thursday before the All-Star Game last year, I was watching NBA on TNT, and they were talking about the people that were named the All-Stars and the people that were snubbed.
So I decided to look back in history after they read an important stat that 3 people all time have averaged 28 points per game or more at the time of the All-Star Game, and all of them were snubbed. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What's going on, guys? SMH, Super Mario Hoops, back with some more hoops. And today I'm here to bring you guys 3 of the most pure scorers in NBA history that all got snubbed from the All-Star Game. Now, I'm defining a pure scorer as what they listed in their criteria. That's someone that they said averaged over 28 points per game at the time of the All-Star break, which has been done 3 times, in which all 3 of those people did not make the team. So let's review them in chronological order. Starting back in the 1965-1966 NBA season with the New York Knicks wing player Dick Barnett. Dick Barnett, he's famously known for on NBA 2K for having one of the worst jump shots you can imagine. But for my buddy Mr. Barnett here at the All-Star break, he was averaging 28.4 points per game, and this included 17 different times he dropped 30 or more points and 2 different times that he dropped 40 or more points. Now, he did miss 7 games during that season, but in my opinion, he should have made it over Adrian Smith of the Cincinnati Royals. Now, Adrian Smith in this season averaged about 18 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, and 3 assists. And at the time of the All-Star break, if you round up, he did average 20 points per game, but it was a little bit under at the time of the All-Star break. Now, one of the most notable parts to this that I believe could have led them to pick Adrian Smith over Dick Barnett was the fact that the Royals were 26-14 at the All-Star break, whereas the Knicks,
they were the opposite, sitting at 14-26 by their break.
But the crazy thing is that there were 4 teams in the Eastern Conference in this season, and every Eastern Conference team that year got 3 All-Stars except for Dick Barnett's team in the New York Knicks, who only got 1 with Willis Reed. And also the other thing that is pretty crazy is that the 3rd seed that year was the Cincinnati Royals, so they very well could have had 2 All-Stars from each team, especially since Dick Barnett was averaging about 9 points per game more. Now, in terms of after the break, Dick Barnett kind of slowed down a little bit. He averaged 16.9 points per game. He did actually drop 30 points on 6 more occasions that year, but he did also have 9 single-digit scoring games, including 1 game where he actually went scoreless. That was on March 11th of 1966 against Bailey Howell and the Baltimore Bullets. That's something that neither of the other 2 players on this list actually did at all during their whole season. Now, the New York Knicks that year, they ended up 30-50, which would be good for the 8th best record in the entire league of 9 teams. And actually, they placed 4th of 4 teams in their conference. So it's safe to say that probably the best argument against Dick Barnett for making the All-Star team this season was the fact that his team just wasn't good enough to warrant more All-Stars. I mean, they valued winning a lot back then. That's a big reason why Bill Russell has 5 MVPs. The next person on our list is known as Lloyd Bernard Free, or I'm sure most of you guys know him more as World B. Free. World B. Free, before the All-Star break, was averaging 28.7 points per game. And this included 17 different times he dropped 30-point games and 3 times he dropped 40-point games. Now, he did miss 4 games in this season, but at the All-Star break, the Clippers were actually 27-23, which is 4 games over 500. And the person that I think he should have made it over was Otis Birdsong. Now, Otis Birdsong, he averaged about 21.7 points per game on the season, roughly 4 rebounds and 3 assists. But at the time of the All-Star break, he was even a little bit below that. He was actually averaging about 21 points per game. And the Kings at this time were 31-20. And they were, they did end up the top seed in their conference at the end of the season. But, I mean, that's only 4 games. I mean, you could look at 4 games right now.
I mean, guys like De'Aaron Fox and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they're only separated by a few games, and you're not going to really distinguish De'Aaron Fox's winning by that much now. And both are great, but it's just hard to distinguish winning when that's the case, But based on this year, most of you might even pick SGA, so it really just serves to further my point.
In terms of after the break, though, World B. Free was just about as consistent as you could ask for. He averaged 28.8 points per game, which is just a tenth of a point more than he averaged before the All-Star break. 9 times he scored 30 points or more, and 2 more times he scored 40 points or more. His team, the San Diego Clippers, they finished the season 43-39 that year, which was actually 5th in their division of 6 teams, but that might be misleading because they actually finished 7th in the conference and the top 6 teams made the playoffs. So they were very close to making it. They were just 1 seed out, and that's something very familiar with the guy we're about to get into right here. And this is the whole reason that this whole topic was brought up. They were interviewing Bradley Beal. Now, Bradley Beal,
He made the All-Star team this past year, but looking at the season prior to that,
was averaging 29.1 points per game before the All-Star break. This also included 10 different times he scored 30 or more points, and 4 different times he scored 40 or more points. Now, he did miss 7 games before the All-Star break that year, and in terms of the full season, he missed 15. The Wizards also weren't the greatest team. They were 20-33 at the All-Star break. But I think one person that you could argue Bradley Beal over that year would be Domantas Sabonis. Now, I know this might be weird because he's actually a front court player, but if you look at the people who made the All-Star team that year, some of the reserves consisted of Jason Tatum, Chris Middleton, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Domantas Sabonis, which is 5 front court players, and there's only 3 that are required. The last 2 spots can be wild cards and go to anybody. And I would say that, Jimmy Butler, people were talking about he should have been a starter last year. Jason Tatum was playing pretty well, and Chris Middleton was shooting like a 50-40-90. I think Bam and Domantas Sabonis were probably the 2 worst All-Stars in that conference for that season. And you could probably argue Bam as well because the Heat did have 2 guys make it that year. But Sabonis, both before and after the All-Star break, averaged about 18.5 points, about 12 rebounds, and 5 assists. And his team's record was 32-23 going into the fun weekend. In terms of after the break, though, Bradley Beal stepped it up probably more than anybody else on this list. He moved his average from 29.1 points per game before the All-Star break to averaging 36.5 points per game after. He also had 5 30-point games, 1 40-point game, and 2 50-point games in the time after the All-Star break. Now, this might seem a little bit crazy. You also have to take it with a grain of salt because Bradley Beal, he didn't play at all during the bubble games when the Wizards were invited down there. A big reason why they went 0-8 in those games. And he did only play about 11 games afterwards. If we go to World Be Free and Dick Barnett, they each played roughly 20-25 games apiece after the All-Star break. So it's more reasonable why their averages were more towards normality. But it's just pretty crazy that someone can average over 28 points per game and get snubbed. And I think the common theme here amongst all these players, even if it doesn't make sense too much, is they didn't have the team record to back it up. Adrian Smith, his Royals were substantially better than the New York Knicks when Dick Barnett got snubbed. And that's a big reason why he made it. Even though the Royals already had Oscar Robertson making the All-Star game, they already had Jerry Lucas in there, they also got Adrian Smith, which is just pretty fascinating. We can even look at World Be Free. He got snubbed for Otis Birdsong for 4 games. It was just a 4-game differential between the Kings and the Clippers. And the Clippers were still a really good team, and they didn't get any All-Stars that year at all. So it's pretty crazy the team over 500, with a guy averaging almost 30 points a game, got snubbed. And as for Bradley Beal, his team argument was probably the weakest among the 3. However, I think after the All-Star break, he proved to everyone why he should have been on the team.
And he continued to make a statement with that the following season as well. Most of the year he had the scoring crown. Now late in the season, Steph Curry took it away from him, but he was still averaging over 30 points per game for pretty much the entire NBA season.
But I don't know, you guys can let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you think these guys should have made the All-Star team, or did the NBA, the fans, the media, the players, did they all get it right?
this is why I personally always say that they need to extend the All-Star lineups to 15 people per conference so that there's going to be less snubs.
But I think that's going to do it for me. I've done my talking. Now it's time to hear from you. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the noti bell as well if you enjoyed this video.
And don't forget to share this video with your friends, your family, and the hobos down the street corner.
But that's going to do it for me. I'm out. Peace.